Welcome back, friends. I'm OC, I'm your host, and today we're going to be talking about tabletop games. These are my tabletop games and my dice tower. So this week we're going to talk about tabletop games and just a little story on how this fascination all came about before we briefly take a look at some of these games. And a little later on in our tabletop video series, we'll delve deeper into each one of these games. We'll take a look how they're played, and in future videos we're gonna break down each one of these, because as you know, there's a lot of rules, there's a lot of details in these things. So for now we're just gonna have a brief little overview. And if you're a gamer like me, you've probably heard the word Dungeons and Dragons. And just a little story on how this fascination came about before we briefly look at it. If you're a gamer like me, you've probably heard of Dungeons and Dragons somewhere in your gaming life. If you're not a gamer, you've probably heard of it through comics, through movies, and you've probably seen already the weird looking dice. You've probably seen grown men dressed up as wizards at the comic shop and all this craziness. Now, throughout my life, I've heard of this Dungeons and Dragons. I've seen people playing it in the comic shop with these notebooks and rule books that are more than 100 pages. People hunched over tiny little tables playing these games. And you know, it was something that I was curious about, but I never really, dedicated time to actually pursuing it. Well, flash forward 20 years later from my days playing Magic in the college dorm rooms, and now I'm a married guy, I have a serious job, and it's kind of like I really was disappointed with my copy of Cyberpunk and gaming. And I was just ready to just say, you know what, man, I'm done with gaming in general. It's like I've got over it. But one night things changed. One night it happened that my wife, who's a big fan of The Big Bang Theory, she just absolutely loves this show. And one night on HBO, I saw she was watching an episode of The Big Bang Theory, and you see them, the nerds are playing a game. They're sitting on the floor. These nerds, man, they're into this high Dungeons and Dragons gaming, but they were playing another game that wasn't Dungeons and Dragons. So they're sitting on the floor playing it, and I go, whoa, what's that? And my wife turns to me and goes, oh, it's this board game, look it up. So I pull up my phone, I look up, Big Bang Theory board games, games that have appeared on the show, and that's when I saw it on Amazon. I purchased it, and Talisman 4th edition, this is the game that they were playing. I read the description on Amazon, and immediately when I see the artwork of it, if you could see the artwork of this thing, is beautiful. It really drew me in immediately, the hook of this game. And from there, I kind of, I fell into the rabbit hole, if you will, of tabletop gaming. And it all really started with that one episode of The Big Bang Theory. So big shout out to my wife and to Chuck Lorre, the writer of The Big Bang Theory, for introducing me to what I now know is one of my favorite tabletop games, Talisman, and one that I'm going to be playing more and more and more, and just learning more about. The object of this game, well, this game, first off, this game is for ages 12 and up. Okay, so just some details of this game. It can be 2 to 6 players, right? You can have 2 to 6 players play it. And a typical game, according to this, lasts anywhere between 90 and 120 minutes. Now, as someone who's played games of Talisman, I know that games can go on well beyond 120 minutes, 2 hours, 4 hours, if you will. But the game is an event. It gives me something that that I've been looking for a long time, and it's that sense of freedom in gaming, which I saw that many of the players who played this type of games, you know, it's sort of a freedom, a different kind of freedom that's offered in your typical open world games. Talisman being itself a kind of open world game in the fact that you can move the pieces forwards and backwards throughout the board, and the object of the game is to actually get to the center of the board where there is the Crown of Command. So all of the players in Talisman are trying to get to the center of the board, and in the center of the board you have the Crown of Command. To get to the Crown of the Command, or the center of the board, you need a talisman, because the board is broken up into 3 levels, or three play areas, as you will: the outside layer, the middle layer, the inner layer. And to move from one to another, the monsters get harder. Guys, the game has so much detail, this deserves a video on its own. Needless to say that matches in Talisman are very memorable. There was a situation where my wife, you know, the whole thing is like, no 2 games are exactly the same. That's why the game is so addictive. That's why it keeps you coming back. That is the hook of the game. Because in addition to the game having this world, which the illustrations on this is beautiful, and this is put out by Pegasus Spiley. I hope I'm saying that name right. Pegasus Spiley is a German company. And the game Talisman has been around for quite a while. In fact, it's already printed its 4th edition. With other spin-offs, you have, I think it's the Disney one, which is called Kingdom Hearts Talisman, and the Star Wars edition Talisman, which came out last year, which I ordered and is coming in this summer, so I cannot wait for that Star Wars version of Talisman. But there are multiple talismans out there, guys, and multiple expansions and things of this nature. But the base game, the game you want if you're interested in this type of gaming that is, you know, Dungeons and Dragons, but it's not to the level of Dungeons and Dragons. You see, because I actually have here with me one board game that I did buy. I think this was my 3rd board game, and this is the real Dungeons and Dragons Essentials Kit, which is everything you need to know to create your own characters and play new adventures in the greatest role-playing game on Earth, or as it says, Dungeons and Dragons. But see, with Dungeons and Dragons, the character creation booklets, and of course the instructions and rule booklets, are 60 pages a piece, so we're talking about 120 pages of rules and details that you need to read, which for a lot of times is what made it daunting for me to get into the world of Dungeons and Dragons, the reading. You know, it's not that I don't like reading, but then again, when you're thinking of a game, especially for someone like me who's very busy, I want something that I could, you know, quickly get into, quickly learn. You know, it has rules, but it's not like super in depth. When I have the time, definitely, but I don't. So it's something that I will make more room for in my life. So I have this D&D's Essentials Kit, which is basically an intro to Dungeons and Dragons, which I haven't played yet. I opened it up to see, and the rules are like, for somebody who like me who's a newbie at this, like I'm new to this whole world, I still have to make time for something like this to read it and really get into it. That's not the case with Talisman. This is a game that practically anybody can jump into. There's a rule book. It's you know, it's not too long, it's not too short, and it might seem daunting at first and a bit difficult. The first time we played here at the house, we really didn't know what we were doing, and it was a little crazy. But you know, now we're like to our 4th game of Talisman, and now we're really like more getting into like how the game operates, the game flows, and it's just really a great game, guys. There's really hard to like put into words how great the game is. All I can say is it has all of the hallmarks of a classic game. There's replayability, There's unpredictability, which leads to the replayability aspect. No two games are the same. And you can't pick your character. Your character is randomly assigned to you. So whatever character you get in this world, be it a thief or a zombie or or a wizard or a cleric or a fighter. So the board is absolutely beautiful. So when I say the board, I mean like the gaming board. When you open the box and open up the gaming board, you'll see. And in future videos, when we really get into the meat and guts of Talisman, if we really get into it, you're gonna see like, wow, like this is like so great. It's like so cool. It's really an open world game. Where you could decide to take actions that are unethical, actions that would be perceived as bad, but the game is so great, it's so addicting that you just want to keep playing it. So that's Talisman, and this was the first game that I ordered. It has a special place in my heart now. The artwork, like everything that makes the game come together, which is not only the aesthetics of the artwork, but how the game is played, the gameplay aspect of it, the fact that, man, I could just go on and on and on. But the picture, what you see in that picture is what you get in the game. Like, the tension is unreal. And the fact that they made a Star Wars version of this and the center is Palpatine, oh my goodness, guys, that's gonna be crazy. Well, Talisman, when we first got it, as I said, we didn't know what we were doing, and it was daunting. It's not as daunting as Dungeons and Dragons, because the rule book is not, the two rule books with the characters and the rules are not 120 pages put together. Talisman, I think it maybe has, like, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 20 to 30 pages that you have to read. It's not a lot, guys. It's not a lot. I know it sounds like a lot, but it's not a lot. So I'm thinking, all right, well, I'm probably, out of my depth with Talisman because I didn't know what I was doing there. So one day my wife walks into, I believe, Hot Topic, I believe it was. She ordered it online, but it was through Hot Topic. Well, the game she found, I ended up liking a little more than Talisman in the beginning. It's still one of my top games, and I would say the two that I'm holding right now, the Talisman and the Dungeon, are my two top favorite games that I own. The Dungeon is easier to play than the Talisman, right? And so what I love about Dungeon is the fact that, unlike Talisman, where the goal is to get to the center of the board and cast a spell, right? To get to the center of the board, you need a Talisman to get to the center. So you're going to spend a lot of your gameplay time in adventures trying to attain a Talisman. In the game Dungeon, your main goal, and by the way, this is a side note, don't let the artwork fool you, right? Because when I first saw the artwork to this, I'm thinking, man, this I'm not gonna enjoy this. This is kiddie game, and I mean, you can see the difference in the two artworks here. Like, I love this type of artwork, guys. Like this type of like Diablo and Gauntlet, Golden Axe. It's like a type of artwork that invokes a medieval fantasy world, and it's really well done. And then when you see the artwork on this box, it's a bit more of a like a young, childish type of artwork, which is okay. It's great. But the point of this artwork is to convey that as a game, it's an entry level like pathway into the world of Dungeons and Dragons, because it retains a lot of what is the mature game of Dungeons and Dragons, which is something like this, right? Which is something mature like this, and it boils that down into its simple aspects in a game like this, which is not called Dungeons and Dragons, simply Dungeon. The object of the game, of course, is to collect the most loot, and the player who collects the most loot and returns to the center of the game board is the winner. So it's just basically a game where you move 5 paces into any dungeon, slay the monster, and collect the gold. It is basically up to 8 players, and a typical game of Dungeon could probably last 90 minutes, but on higher levels because of course you have classes. You have the rogue, you have the fighter, you have the cleric, you have the wizard, and each one of these classes has to collect a specific amount of gold. The game board itself as well, as you can see, that's the game board in the back. It's also nicely done, of course, to reflect the dungeon, and each of the cells and chambers are color coded. Well, the chambers are not color coded, but each of the rooms are color coded to indicate a different level in the dungeon with different monsters that as you kill them, you gain more loot. If you're playing with someone like a wizard, you're gonna need 30,000 loot, right? Which is really high, and that makes the game go on longer. But if you pick a low-level character, like let's say you pick a rogue or I believe a fighter or a rogue, it's 10,000. And so that's the number of coins or treasures that you need to get. And once you have the most treasure, you go back to the center, and there you go, you win the game. So it's pretty simple. So you got your loot game, which dungeon is strictly loot based. And it is fun, guys. It is so addicting. It is so fun. Again, another unpredictable game, which really the unpredictable part comes that you could be holding all of the gold. You get killed by a monster, you drop all your gold, any one of the players in the game, and take your gold and claim it as their own and get to the center and win the game, which is what I did in one game of dungeon. Much to the dismay and surprise of the wife, who did not take kindly to me stealing all her gold when she dropped it when she could not slay a dragon. And those are the moments I'm talking about, guys. Like, the games, they bring about like unscripted, right? Unscripted situations that are different. I mean, in video games, in most video games, you can tell, like, okay, a boss is coming, or, you know, there's a secret in this area and stuff like that. But with these tabletop games, more often than not, you will find situations where you're like, wow, like, I didn't think of that. I got stuck in one chamber, in one game with 3 monsters that wouldn't let me leave that chamber. Eventually, I had to concede the game. My wife won that one because I was a wizard. I didn't have any teleportation spells left, so I couldn't teleport out. And I was actually stuck in the chamber with 3 monsters, and I could not leave the whole game. I'm sorry, my third game on the list was the D&D as Essential Kit, which I still find to this day daunting to get into. I haven't really cracked this open. Down the line, I will make more time for this. When summer's coming up, you know, probably I'll get more into that. My last game that I wanted to show off was the Lord of the Rings Quest to Mount Doom Middle-earth adventure game. Now, this game I found, it was in a bargain bin at Barnes & Nobles. I like to visit Barnes & Nobles sometimes because, you know, you have a lot of great, of course, they have a great graphic novel section. I like to support my local bookstores as well, physical books to just go in, and nowadays you don't have that luxury, everything Amazon. So I found it in the discount. I think it might have been about 20 bucks, I'm not sure, but you know, it looked interesting to me, and I was like, I love Lord of the Rings. I'm a Lord of the Rings fan. I own all of the movies, and I like the lore, so why not try it? So this is the Lord of the Rings Quest to Mount Doom, and this is 2 to 5 players, ages 8 and up, about 30 to 45 minutes, but we've only played 1 game of this, and I'll tell you, it definitely was fun, but we still have to play test this more because you know, this game definitely is all about who has the ring and who can deliver that ring to Mount Doom to destroy it. No one knows who has the ring. The ring can be anywhere on Middle-earth. It was a bit fun, but we have to play it a little bit more. We can upgrade our games. That's one of the best things I like to do for these types of games, and that's what gets me more into the world. So one of the things that we got just for our games, if I could just show you this, let me see. So here's our dice tray. And like little things like this really help to make the game fresh and help just to make the game more lively. So we would roll our dice on this, right? And this is like, has a backing, so it's a double-sided. So you can have your dice tray, and so we will roll on this. And to make things even more crazy, we got a dice tower, guys. So let's unbox that. You still want the aesthetics and looks of a medieval adventure fantasy with magic, dragons, maidens in distress, kings and queens, rogues, criminals, thieves, all sorts of stuff that you encounter in, of course, Dungeon and Talisman. And this is a dice tower from Forged, the same company who made the dice tray. And this is the Grim Bones Dice Tower. Haxar stared cautiously at the figure sitting atop a throne of bones. To either side of the grim spectacle was a closed door, and as the grizzled warrior moved closer to investigate, the skeletal hand slowly turned to him and spoke a single word: choose. And that is what you will do. This is our dice tower, friends, and this is what we use for our game. This is what we use for Dungeon, Talisman. But here it is, friends. You have our dice tower. Ooh, spooky. Okay, that's from Forged. Dice goes in at the top, comes out at the base where the skull's mouth is. This is a beautiful piece, guys. It's got some weight to it. It's got some rubber feet at the bottom. And if you look at the bottom, it actually has a battery component where you insert 2 AA batteries, and you're going to get a glowing skull that's going to glow different colors. And it's really nice. It sets a really nice mood for the game. So you have Death on his throne sitting atop a, a little hill of skulls. So he's sitting atop of skulls on his throne. You see Death. You see the Forged logo. It's emblazoned Forged on the back. That's really cool. I really like this, guys. This collectible is great. It has a great statue weight feel to it. So it's not going to move if you take this outside and put this on your game mat. Our tray, which has that double-sided liner of red, which is really nice. It gives it this royal red look. And of course, the company logo on the back, Forged. I got these from Amazon. This is something that I'm going to use, and I really like this a lot, guys. It just gives it a different atmosphere. I even upgraded some of my minifigs to include, like, of course, orcs, bandits, rogues, elven cleric warriors. You have an elven cleric warrior right there. Guys, I hope you enjoyed our video. Make sure to hit that like, hit that subscribe. This is OC from Bamcomixs, and I'll catch you on the next one, guys. Peace.